I have a trade idea. Yeah, not a trade rumor, not a trade report. A writer throwing out an idea and talking about it. Kevin O'Constantinople, he writes for The Ringer, took the Jake Fisher reporting that the Kings were in on Lauri Markkanen and said, here's what I would do if I was the Kings in acquiring Lauri Markkanen. In Kevin O'Constantinople's trade, the Kings get Lauri Markkanen and center Walker Kessler in exchange for Keegan Murray, Kevin Huerter, and then it just says picks. It's not specified. So let's call it 2 first-round picks. Let's just we'll say that for the sake of our discussion here, because I don't think that Kevin Huerter or the picks would be the hang-up here. It's very obviously Keegan Murray.
Yeah.
And I've had a change of heart on this. Because for a while, I've never been like, you need to put Keegan on the table, you need to trade him. That's insane. That's objectively insane. But I've been very like, well, if they think there's a star level player and they are worried that Keegan's ceiling is below that, and they think that this helps them long term, then then you kind of have to do that, even if. But now I'm full blown at the point where I'm just not moving Keegan. Not for any realistic deal. Not in a Brandon Ingram deal. I'm not doing it in a Lauri Markkanen deal. I think the name we would always bring up is Jaylen Brown, right? If somebody like Jaylen Brown becomes available, then
Donovan
sure,
Mitchell.
Sure.
Yeah.
Then let's put... Fine. But in any of these trades that we've talked about, whether it's Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, or Lauri Markkanen, I've just reached a point where Keegan is entirely off the table to me. There's no thought process to me that could come from the Kings front office that would make that make sense. Because the only way Lauri Markkanen puts you in that position where you are surefire, like definitely a playoff team and maybe contending in the West, or Brandon Ingram doing the same, the only way that works to me is if it also means Keegan Murray is in your starting lineup with that player. Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram make the most sense for the Kings alongside Keegan Murray and Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. It makes way less sense, and you feel way less good about the Kings, short and long term, if it's one of those guys, no Keegan, and De'Aaron and Domas and Malik.
I agree 100%.
I'm now out. I'm taking it entirely off the table.
Yeah, it has to be a superstar level or a legitimate long-term all-star like possibility.
I would agree with you.
Yeah, and I mean, like, look, Lauri Markkanen made an all-star team, Brandon Ingram made an all-star team, but they aren't all-stars right now. And even though they're 26 and 27 years old, I still have a tough time. And part of it, it's complicated because it's not just who you would be giving up. There are strings attached everywhere with this.
Right.
So first and foremost, what does that do with your relationship to De'Aaron Fox? And I know at the end of the day, a player like De'Aaron Fox is always going to be concerned about like who he is and what he is and his legacy, but also like the people around him and how are you building the team. And so there's always a possibility that you're able to get someone that's so good that it makes it make sense. But you also have to understand that there's a very good relationship there, that Keegan Murray is part of the Fox family at this point, and that like moving Keegan Murray is not something that De'Aaron Fox would recommend, at least not that I know, unless it's such a no-brainer that you have to do it.
Right.
So that's number one. Number two, the contractual issue. You can't overlook it. Like the fact that you cannot sign Lauri Markkanen to an extension right now. And the Utah Jazz cannot sign him to an extension and then trade him to you. Right. You can give him an extension, but the extension he's not signing.
Yeah, it's very short of what he's going to make on the open market.
It's based off of his $18 million a year salary, and it comes with a small raise and then only 5% raises over the 2 years. That's all you can give him. He's not taking that deal.
No chance.
There's no way he's going to go back into free agency at 29 feeling good about what just happened. So that's something that I would point out. And the fact is that Keegan Murray is going to get a rookie scale extension next summer. And that we don't know what that dollar amount will be, but I guarantee you it's going to be way less because financially, per the NBA, you can only make a certain amount for years of service in the league. So a fifth-year player their maximum they can make is a little over 30 million bucks. That's 2
Mhm.
years from now.
Mhm.
He can make a little over 30 million bucks. Maybe it's 32 by that point, right?
Sure.
Lauri Markkanen is going to make 40, 50 at that point.
Oh, at least.
He's going to want that next summer. You're going to be paying him a 4-year, $200 million deal, right? Or
Mhm.
5-year, 200 and something $million deal.
Mhm.
It's written. It's done. It's
Yep.
over.
Yep.
That's what you're giving him, right?
Mhm.
And so you're going to take away your control of a young asset that you will have control over for the next 6 or 7 years and trade that for 1 year potential of a player. It's not happening.
It doesn't
So
make a lot of sense.
and what you said, like we can put all of these guys up on a whiteboard like what the Kings have, right?
Mhm.
There is no way I'm taking Lauri Markkanen and no Keegan Murray over Keegan Murray and Kyle Kuzma or Keegan Murray and Brandon Ingram. If I
Mhm.
got to give up a little bit more to get a Brandon Ingram, or I got to give up a little bit more than I'm comfortable to give up for Kyle Kuzma because he's under contract for 3 years,
Yeah.
that's
Picks
fine.
wise, I'm punting. I don't take whatever picks.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. The Keegan thing is now to me completely off the table. Just the more I've kind of thought about this and like you talk about with the contract stuff, it just from a basketball standpoint, I don't like it. From a financial standpoint, I definitely don't like it. So that just doesn't and the Walker Kessler aspect of this, like, okay, fine. Like that's cool as your backup center, but
12
again,
minutes per game.
it's not worth giving up Keegan Murray. And part of me is because I still believe that if there's a leap Keegan's going to have to make. If the Kings are going to maximize themselves, it relies heavily on number 13 and taking a significant step toward being an all-star caliber player. Yeah, whether he makes an all-star team or not, I don't know. The Sacramento thing is weird. But he has to be that caliber of player where we're looking at it and going like, he should be on the all-star team. He should, and if he's not, he's going to be on the top of everyone's list of snubs, the same way De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis were this year. So I think he has to get to that level of player. And I think the Kings are relying on that. And I think there's a lot of people who are still optimistic that he can get there. This isn't a situation. Bogdanovic is a situation that in his first year, he was really good. But then in year 2, he was a little better. But you looked at it and you went, he's 26.
Yeah.
Like he's probably just kind of the player he's going to be. And sure enough, he is sitting at his career averages or right about what he averaged those first 2 years. Keegan Murray is not that. Is he a little bit older than a typical rookie? Yes. But he's not 25. He's not 26.
Yeah, and you bring up Bogey. Bogdanovic had been a pro for like 10 years at that point. He had been a pro since the time he was like 15. So he was refined in who he was. Just like Sasha Vezenkov could have got a little bit better statistically than what he did the year before. But trying to convert Sasha Vezenkov into a much better defensive player over a summer when he's going from his 28 to 29 year season.
Yeah.
Like what do you that's not going to happen.
No, by this point, yeah, you're not developing your skills in that way typically. Yeah. You're going to make marginal improvements on whether it's your lateral quickness or maybe your free throw percentage or your 3-point percentage, but yeah, you're not taking a leap into an elite defender overnight from age 28 to 29.
No.
You saw Keegan do it from age 21 to 22.
Yeah.
Took a nice little jump. So yeah, I think there's an offensive step or steps he needs to take still, but it's not at the point where I'm going, man, the Kings need to sell high.
Well, yeah, but I would also point out that if you were to add a Brandon Ingram to a Keegan Murray lineup, it not only does that give Keegan more time to develop into that player, but it also allows Keegan Murray not to have that type of ceiling that you need him to have today. Yeah. And so today you need him to have a ceiling as a 20 and 6 guy who plays spectacular defense.
Yeah.
Who shoots 38 to 40% from 3.
Right.
Right? In a world where you have a Brandon Ingram, all of a sudden Keegan Murray at 18 points and 6 rebounds or even 7 rebounds, he could probably be a better rebounder if he doesn't have to be the same type of offensive player. That's fine. And that's okay if that's who he is. And all of a sudden you've got 2 guys that are interchangeable and that can, really support you in the right way. But that's like right now, the expectations that you have to have for Keegan Murray are way higher than they would, even if you had a
That's
Kyle
it.
Kuzma.
That's it.
Like, the only way for the Kings today to take the leap forward
Mhm.
is for Keegan to take this really spectacular leap and become Chris
That's it.
Middleton,
That's it.
right?
Yep. The
And
bar comes down so far when you're adding an all-star caliber player to the Kings lineup,
yes, yes.
because now that onus doesn't fall on Keegan.
Well, and he can be your fourth or fifth best player today with the potential to be your third best player down the road.
Mhm.
But the immediate, like, I need you to be this person today is gone. And that's
Mhm.
good. That's good. That's where I think that if you're the Kings, I believe they know that as well. Like, these are
Mhm.
smart basketball people.
Yeah.
And, like, whatever we think about, like, their waiting game and all that stuff, there's usually a reason why it happened, you know?
Mhm.
Like, I don't like some of the games and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I don't like hearing some of the postmortem on the Pascal Siakam stuff that our friend Sam Amick has put out from The Athletic. Like, that stuff is kind of wonky and not real great.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, like, this is a group of basketball minds. They have an entire analytics team that's very good at what they do, that have sought out really good players. It's not like, it wasn't random that this team took a leap. Like, the fact that they took an 18-game leap in one season is crazy, but it wasn't by accident. I mean, they did their homework on what the type of player you want to put next to Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. They
Mhm.
made the moves. They made the draft picks to make all of that happen. Now you have to keep,
Mhm.
growing and morphing your team into a better team than it was a year before.
I do kind of wonder if, sticking on the Keegan and Lauri Markkanen thing for a second, I do kind of wonder if Keegan Murray being off the table is ultimately what hangs up that deal.
Well, I would think, sure. Yeah.
Because the Jazz are in such a weird spot with this. I don't know what they want. They
Yeah.
have Lauri Markkanen's probably not re-signing there, right?
Well, the word is that he would like to resign, but I'm not sure. Like, there's a big difference between wanting to resign right now and wanting to resign. Like, him and Will Hardy have a very good relationship, but again,
Sure.
who knows if Will Hardy's the head coach of that team 2 years from now?
Mhm.
Like, so as a player, you need to think of that. He's going to go into next year's free agency as one of the hottest ticket dudes
Oh,
out there.
1,000%. Like, he's
Yeah,
gonna make a ton of money on a team that could probably compete.
yeah,
And that's where I don't know what the Jazz are doing, as far as, because his price was crazy high at last trade deadline,
uh-huh.
and now it's apparently crazy high again. So they don't apparently want to get rid of him.
Well, but the price
Mhm.
has to come down because he's on a 1-year deal.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. It's so, do they not want to get rid of him unless they're, it's like the Brandon Ayuk thing with the 49ers.
Yeah.
The 49ers had trade talks about Brandon Ayuk in the event that the Commanders wanted to give them the second overall pick for Ayuk.
Mm.
And they would go, okay, fine. If we're gonna fleece you in the deal, we'll take it.
Yeah.
So I think that's what the Jazz are looking for. Like, yeah, if we can fleece somebody in this deal, then we'll take it. But we don't want to get rid of the guy. Which is like, okay, so cool. The Kings have made calls on him, but if they're going, yeah, Keegan Murray, all of your firsts, and also Devin Carter, I just punt.
Yeah.
So,
And
anyways.
it's okay to punt. It's also okay if you're in a negotiation with a team for someone like Brandon Ingram
Mhm.
and you get to the point in the negotiations where it's getting sticky and you're like, okay, this is uncomfortable. Okay, we're going to shift gears and go talk to Utah for a few minutes about Lauri Markkanen. And we
Mhm.
might get back to you. And if
Yeah.
we don't, like, good luck with that because, we can chase him next year in free agency or whatever. We can try to clear cap space. We can
Sure.
try to do a sign and trade. Whatever. We can revisit this down the road.
Mhm.
But for today, like, we might have to go shopping somewhere else. And that's part of why I think, the NBA, it is a negotiation. Everything
Mhm.
is a negotiation. And
Mhm.
sometimes you're using another team against another team. You're
Sure.
using the idea of a Lauri Markkanen against the
Mhm.
Pelicans and like, okay, well, this is a pretty good deal the Kings are giving us, or it's not, and like
Sure.
we've already heard they would very much so like to have a guy like Harrison Barnes on their team,
Mhm.
right? And why wouldn't they?
Fits their ethos.
Yeah,
He's 6'8", rangy, switchable defensively, can hit a three.
shoots a three.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing that
I don't want to say he's good defense. Yeah, he's definitely switchable. I don't know if he's a great defender.
he's solid enough, like
Sure.
league average
Sure.
defender. I would say though with Harrison, The thing that really makes a lot of sense for them with him is the fact that he doesn't miss games.
Yeah.
And they're a team that every single time, you know, Zion Williamson goes out for weeks and weeks, they're in trouble. And Brandon Ingram is a guy who gets hurt, and every single time he goes out, you're in trouble.
Yep.
That wouldn't be you would at least have some sort of identity without him. You would at least have a player who can
Sure.
man the position and will be healthy, and who's proven that over the last 4 years he hasn't missed a game. Like, so there's a lot of positives.
Okay, so I'm going to assume for now that Keegan Murray is the sticking point in any Lauri Markkanen deal. I'm guessing the Jazz are asking for the moon.
Yeah.
What do you think it would be with Brandon Ingram? Like, if the Kings right now have been in talks with the Pelicans, and there's a deal on the table, and the Kings have not pulled the trigger on that deal, what do you think would be the hang up for them?
Okay, so this is always good. It's been the hang up since the beginning with the Pelicans. Like, when we were looking at this potential deal early on, like, hey, what would it take to get Brandon Ingram out, right? It always depended on a 3-team deal. You need a third team if you're the Kings, because the one thing we did hear is at the trade deadline that there was some conversations about potentially swapping Brandon Ingram for Jarrett Allen with the Cavs, right? And so you knew that they wanted a center upgrade. You knew that they were going to lose Valanciunas like they just did. They need a center. The Kings don't have an extra center to offer them. So if you're the Kings, you need to find, or if you're the Pelicans, you need to find a third team that's willing to play. And whether that costs them, again, there's varying degrees of centers. There's, could you get an Isaiah Stewart out of the Pistons who makes $15 million a year? Okay, maybe. They all of a sudden have a bunch of extra power forwards and centers again, right? Is that a player that might make sense there? Okay. Could you get a Clint Capella out of Atlanta? But can the Kings be part of a 3-team trade that puts a player in another spot? And when you're doing this, you're usually looking for a team that isn't looking to get better today, but who's willing to take some of that draft capital.
Right.
And one of those players. And again, I think the Pelicans, like, sure, they would love a first-round pick from the Kings, right? But I also think the Pelicans would love a better center option. And if the first-round pick went to a different team, that might work as well. And
what are the Pelicans going to do with draft picks? I think they're in the same spot as the Kings.
Yeah, maybe.
Where you're punting on your picks,
yeah,
at least for the near future.
And we talk about this all the time. When you're going out and making trades, as much as it is the player that you're chasing, it's the wants and needs of the team that you're dealing with.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like when you're selling something, right? So I don't know people out there who have ever done sales. If you're out there just pitching what you have to offer, you're missing the boat. Sales is very much about having a conversation, letting somebody else tell you what it is that they need from you or what they need. And then your job is to find a way to work your needs and their needs. If you're listening right, your needs and their needs into one package. And that's not that hard to do. If you're listening, if you're if you're asking the right questions of the other team. So that's the question at this point. The Pelicans, who do you want? Who is the center that you want that's out there? And let me see if there's a way for us to go get that center into this 3-team deal.
Right.
And I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it is. Maybe the Kings and Jazz have talked because Walker Kessler is a guy that the New Orleans Pelicans would like to get their hands on. And is there a possibility that you could move a Kevin Huerter to one team and another guy to another team, or whatever the deal is? They get another draft pick, Kessler goes somewhere else to the Pelicans, and you get the guy that you want. So that's what this is about. It's about listening. It's about finding out what it is that the other team is trying to get, and then trying to build a trade that makes sense for everybody, not where you're ripping somebody off.
Right.
And like, look, there is a danger in trading for Brandon Ingram. Not only is he on a short-term deal, but he plays 65 games a year.
Yeah.
There's a danger in it. Just like Lauri Markkanen, they can say all they want about how good Lauri Markkanen is. Lauri Markkanen plays 65 games a year at best. And so that's a problem. Like, if you're a team like the Kings and you have aspirations of going deep into the playoffs, and you got a guy who can't even get through an 82 game season, and you're now banking on him to maybe get through another 15 games after that.
Sure.
That's not always great. So all of these things have risks, and that's why, like, I understand the cautious approach, but I also, you don't want to be Terrence Long. I'll just like,
yeah, well, that's right. And that's, I guess, where, again, earlier, like we opened the show talking about patience is, and you and I discussed this a lot yesterday. Because the deal didn't happen on July 1 doesn't mean there's no deal to be had.
oh yeah,
Same thing on July 2, same thing on July 3. But if the waiting around is because they're trying to find a center and they're trying to make this a 3-team deal, okay, fine. But if the waiting around is because they are going, there's some risk here.
I don't want to give up 2 firsts. I only want to give up 1.
Right. If it's that, then what are we doing here? If you're trying to eliminate any risk from these deals, I know you want to minimize it for sure. But if it's 2 firsts and hey, he might not play 67 games. Well, okay. If you're waiting for the perfect player, then you're never going to make a deal.
The perfect player doesn't become available because a team that has a perfect player doesn't ever let go of them. There is not going to be a time where Victor Wembanyama will play for the Sacramento Kings.
No.
That's it.
Nope.
There's not. And I don't know if he'll play his entire career in San Antonio, but there ain't going to be a time where he plays in Sacramento.
No.
Unless he completely falls apart and you get like the Ralph Sampson 2.0 deal from like 1986.
Sure.
And you're taking on a guy who's got no knees left and you hope that his brand name will sell something. Are
you reporting this?
Yeah, that's
Victor Wembanyama is not going to play for the Kings?
Yeah, that's it. But I mean, like, look, perfect players, they don't exist.
Right. They get max contracts from their teams. Or they tell their team, hey, I want out and I would like to go to this place.
Yeah, they take their talents to South Beach.
Yes. That's it.
So look, like, again, and the other aspect to this is I know so many people are upset about the free agency stuff. The Kings don't get free agents. They don't. And when they do get free agents,
well,
they never, ever, 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 ever live up to their contract outside of Malik Monk.
Thank you.
And outside of Vlade Divac.
Shout out. Malik and Vlade.
That's it. How many times do I have to see Marco Bellinelli and George
Italian
Hill
Kobe Bryant?
And like so many players come through Sacramento that just take the money and cannot play once they forget how to play basketball once they get to Sacramento. Mm-hmm. So
ideally that is shifting. Ideally there is a culture and a program being built that moves that, but that's historically how it's been. And I think if you're the Kings, you have to ride on that wave until it's proven otherwise.
Well, Kyle, and even if it does change,
operate under that assumption, I should say.
Even if you're operating under that assumption, you don't have any cap space anyways.
Right.
So you're not going to be a player. Paul George ain't walking through that door.
Nope.
Sorry.
You don't think Paul George is taking a minimum?
No. To play for the Kings?
Well, we tried.
Well, if you would have drafted Bronny, this whole thing would be different.
Did the Kings make a mistake not drafting Bronny James? We'll talk about it next.